It's our right. Let us purge. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we're here with the final part of the 2024 Halloween special, The First Purge. So, with this special, we've been going throughout the world, going to different countries and checking out horror movies from the perspectives of these different countries. We've been to France, we've been to Sweden, we've been to Korea, we've been to Japan, and now we come home to America. Home for me, at least, I guess. And we're continuing our yearly, um, what's the word? We're continuing our yearly, oh my god, I can't think of the word. Tradition. We're continuing our yearly tradition of going through the Purge series, the Purge film series, here during the Halloween special. And so last year we had the Purge election year, which actually would have been great for this year considering. But this year we have the first Purge. So where we left off last time, the election year took place, what was it, like 15 years into the future after Purge Anarchy? And it was centered around this one woman whose family were victims of the purge, and when she was younger, when she was like a kid. And so now, all these years later, having grown up and everything, she is now candidate for president, and she's running on the platform of wiping the purge out, completely getting rid of it and dismantling the system. Her opponent is, I believe, the incumbent, and he was running on the idea of, keeping it going and continuing what the new founding fathers had planned. Because he was basically the insert candidate in that regard by the new founding fathers. And so there's the entire thing with all of our groups. We had Frank Grillo back. We had everyone continuing to navigate all this shit going down while also having to navigate keeping her safe so that she could continue to run and win in the end. And she did. She won, and everything seemed to end on a really positive note with the purge being purged, ironically. But now we go back to the beginning. The first Purge is a prequel to every other movie in this series. It is, as the title suggests, the first Purge. This is year one. This is going back to the very first year that this occurred. Now, this is going to be interesting on how they portray this, because by logic, this should be the least gruesome, least death-filled of these movies. Because logically speaking, this would be before this has really become an institutional thing and before people have really come to accept it. At this point in time, it would still be new, it would still be fresh, and yeah, there would definitely be some people engaging in it still. But it absolutely would be lesser in that. Not as many people engaged, not as intense. You would definitely not have like the trucks going around with that the new founding fathers are sending out and everything, like with Big Daddy and all that. Um, you would not. You would more than likely not have big groups of people working together. You would more than likely have like just random people just strewn about every here and there. It wouldn't be as dangerous. There wouldn't be as big of a threat as there usually would. In fact, there probably wouldn't even be that much security comparatively. Because think about it, it's the very first purge. A lot of people probably wouldn't be taking this very seriously. A lot of people probably would see this as a joke. And there's not going to be like huge, like powerful security systems and all like you see in the first movie. There's not going to be a lot that they can really do. But in order for this movie to, be the fourth film in this series, you do have to up it to some degree, which means that we're probably going to focus on one or two specific bad guys here who are just insane. Just two insane people who are being given the chance to be legally insane. And I say two, but like, just a small amount specifically. And they just go all out against whoever our heroes end up being this time around. That's how I'm seeing it. It's going to be like a very small amount of people, and it's going to be like very kind of like loose compared to previous ones. At least if it's going to be realistic, it should be. Because if they really up the stakes and up the intensity of it to where it's like higher so than in the last movies, then it's not going to be believable. Mind you, this concept I've talked about before isn't really believable in the first place. Something like this could never happen. It's just not logically or realistically feasible to any degree. But still, it's still nonetheless, it needs to be lesser. Less is more. That should be the tagline for this movie. There is one more movie after this, The Forever Purge, and there is a series as well. And I think that they're actually planning another movie, actually. I don't know if it's like actually in production or anything, but I think I heard they're planning another one. So my plans with the future ones is probably just to continue what we've been doing. Next year we'll get to the Forever Purge, and if there's another one out or about to come out at that time, then we'll probably just continue to go each year. If there's not, maybe we'll end up going into the series at some point. I also have to find out like when the series takes place compared to everything and all. Because we could technically probably still do the series just regularly on the channel. That we probably wouldn't have to wait for. But yeah. So, outside of just the concept of this being the first Purge, I don't know anything about it. I don't know who's in this one. I don't know if we're going to have any, like, notable continuity with the first few. Like, are we going to see or even hear about any of the characters from the first few movies? Probably not. I feel very unlikely. We're probably going to be following a completely separate, different storyline altogether. Again, before anything really gets a chance to get going. Because the first few movies had connections between them. 1 and 2 didn't really have much between them, but then, like, the third one had connections that connected back to both 1 and 2. I think the only connection between 1 and 2, it was one character who appeared in both. I think that's it. And he also appeared in 3. So now we're here with the fourth one, and I don't know if we're going to have any connections at all. Possibly, but I don't know. Also, I'm trying to remember what year this all, like, in-universe started from. I'm not 100% on that, but they'll tell us, of course. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see this because I really enjoy reacting to these each year. I love how it's become a tradition for the channel. And I hope that this one ends up being just as good, if not better. I've really been waiting for this one. And it sucks that we're at the end of the Halloween special already, but I'll talk more about that in the afterthoughts as we close this out for this year. For now, let's actually get to the movie first and close out this Halloween in style. Cutting in here real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions, with 2 on Wednesday. We also have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I do pre-record them during the week, but upload them on the weekend. And don't forget all of the awesome gaming content we have on the Princess of Gaming channel. We have Baldur's Gate 3 every single day, Horizon Forbidden West every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We have Beyond Two Souls on Wednesdays and Sundays, and on Saturdays we have Poppy Playtime. And don't forget to follow the link in the description below to today's reaction. I redirect all reactions just due to copyright, you know how it is. And on top of that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video for more awesome content such as this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get started on today's reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So first off, I was looking through the cast here, and Isaiah's actor, Joyvin Wade, is actually someone we know from the channel. He was Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, in the Doom Patrol series. So we've actually seen him on the channel before in Doom Patrol. I did not realize that was him. But also, Dr. Updale, the sociologist who created this entire thing and was eventually killed after she, started to figure out that they were fixing the numbers and everything, that was Marissa Tomei. From My Cousin Vinny, from the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, she's Aunt May in those. That was Marissa Tomei. I didn't realize that at all. Maybe it was the blonde hair and everything, but it's like I didn't even realize that was her. So, the first Purge, I would describe as a Purge film that is almost entirely focused on the political side of things, and is all about, because of it being the first one, is all about the reasonings behind it and the motivations of the NFFA for it and all. But through this, it loses the entertainment value, for lack of a better term, the entertainment value. What I mean is, the previous Purge films had more theatrics. They were more exciting, more fun, more interesting. They showcased, the masks being really popular with this series, specific styles of masks that were really, memorable, specific enemies, specific heroes. None of that's in this. There's masks in it, but there's not a single memorable mask that really stands out. There's villains and heroes, but again, none of them stand out. None of them really have an impact. And all of the action and stuff, it's like they focus on more types of crime being committed other than just murder. But one, not a huge amount of it. It is mostly still focused on murder. And 2, the action and everything in here feels less entertaining to watch. Again, for lack of a better word. And I know that might sound but isn't that a good thing? And it's to a point, sure, I get what you're saying. Because it's some people, and I've heard people say this, that the Purge films will glorify death by making a show of it, making theatrics. And that's not exactly how I've always seen it. I've seen it as more while the movies very much make it clear that all of this shit is horrifying and evil, they make it entertaining for us as viewers because it's still a movie. And as a movie, it has to be, to some degree, entertaining. Even if its main point is, a message, socio-political message about how the government victimizes the poor, the desolate, the people of color, and whatnot. Which is an amazing, important message to have that we really need to like take to heart, because while it's not done quite in this way, obviously, the ways that the government really like destroys these people's lives is still horrific nonetheless. But this movie, and I get that it also kind of works because it's the first time, the first purge that this happens in, even showing that it's relegated to only Staten Island and not the entire country at the moment. The lack of entertainment value made this boring. And again, it's like, it's almost kind of weird, like you almost like don't want it to be super exciting and fun or anything, but I was bored for a lot of this. This was like an hour and a half long movie. It felt over 2 hours because it felt so slow at certain points. The most entertaining, the most interesting part of this was honestly Skeletor. And he was such an actively minor character that he wasn't even in most of it. He was at the very beginning. He was shown when he cut Isaiah's face. He was shown when Isaiah and him had the confrontation. And then he's shown at the very end where he dies pretty much right away without any, pomp and circumstance. And it's like, he's barely a character in this. He's shown like 4 times in the entire movie and is barely a thing. I would have rather had him be a focus and have the soldiers, the mercenaries, be like more of the secondary plot in regards to that. And I get why the mercenaries were the lead plot. I understand why that was such a big deal because, the NFFA, like, inflating these numbers to fake that the purge was actually successful. Because without that, it would have never continued. They literally inflated the numbers, murdering citizens blindly, just to make sure that this continues and they can do it nationwide. It's so actively fucked up. But again, they don't portray it interestingly at all. And the ending is like shown as like being so hopeful. Like they come out of the night, all of our main characters are alive, and they're like, it's like, what do we do now? We fight. And it's like it pans away from them. Everything is lighting up as the sun's coming up. And it's like this hopeful scene of Staten Island coming together. We know where it fucking goes. This is a prequel to the rest of the fucking series. You can't have a hopeful ending at this point. If this was the first of these movies, you could do that. But this is like the 4th movie. You can't do that at this point. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. A hopeful ending at this point, like even if you're basing it on the logic that chronologically this is the first, even if you're basing it on the logic that this is a prequel to all the others, it still doesn't make sense. Because the thing is, the characters knew that the mercenaries were sent in. They already figured that out. They understood that they were inflating the numbers to make it look better for the NFFA. They shouldn't have hope. There's no reason for them to have any hope. To them, like, going, we'll fight. It's like, you'll fucking lose. You have no chance. Like, what? It was, like, the dumbest way to end that. And then there was, like, the little credit shot, the little credit scene of Arlo. Which, funny, by the way, considering the Arlo, the alligator series. But it's showing this Arlo guy, the head of the NFFA, basically telling the country, oh, this was a massive success. We're planning on probably doing a nationwide purge as early as next year. And it's like, of course, we know that's where it goes. So it's like, especially having that credit scene right after having this hopeful ending is just so illogical. The only thing I can think that they were trying to do with that was to show like the difference between both sides and how they're viewing it. Our heroes are viewing it as a success because they, survived. They managed to stop and kill the mercenaries. While the NFFA is considering a success because even though their mercenaries died, it was enough. They did enough damage to cause this to work on a national scale for them. And it's like both you could say like, oh, you're seeing the idea that both sides think that they've won and have a chance and all, but it's like, again, that doesn't work when you've made it clear that the Staten Islanders know this was rigged against them and know that they don't have a chance. It's like you're literally like you're giving us this ending that just in no way, shape, or form works. And it's just it just ends up being confusing. None of the characters I felt like any level of attached to. Like in most of these, I'll admit, most of the time I don't like grow to care about the characters too much because we don't spend enough time with them before shit really starts going down, and then there's like, multiple perspectives. I think the characters I've cared most about in this series were in the first film, the family. Just the family in general were probably the best scenario of having a set of main characters who you actually do want to see survive and actually care about. In the Purge Anarchy, there's this couple that you care about, and they're pretty much the only ones. In election year, you have basically Frank Grillo and the candidate lady, the presidential candidate lady. That's it. Just those two, really. All the other characters, it's like they're there. They're likable. They're not unlikable. They're just not given as much focus, I guess, and not made to be. No. There is one more in election year. The shop owner guy. I can't remember his name. I can't remember most of their names. That's why I'm calling like Frank Grillo's character just by Frank Grillo. But there was that shop owner guy who was pretty cool too, who ended up dying at the church. I liked him. He was another one of the good ones. So actually, election year had, I think, the second most amount of likable characters after the first. This one had the least. Because it's like, oh, the second one and third one, actually, all three of them had the stranger or whatever they called him. He was given a name in the third one. I just can't remember what it was. But he's in like the first three, and he's like he's a good one too because he continues to be a character. But yeah, where was I going with this? But with this one, like, the mother and her daughter and all, they're barely characters. Am I supposed to care about them? And then you have this other girl and her brother Isaiah. It's like, okay, like they're likable enough, I guess, but they're nothing special. Like Dimitri kind of ends up being like the cool action hero kind of character. And it's like you kind of dig him because of that, but he's not like you're not super invested into liking him. And then Dolores is just kind of there. She exists. She's sassy. It's like, yay. Thumbs up. It's like the characters in this one just aren't as memorable, aren't as likable, aren't as well written. And it really sucks because I feel like this one would actually be the movie I would want the characters to be the best written in. With this having less of the pomp and circumstance and the overall, like, excitement of the previous entries because it's the first one, I feel like it would have benefited more from having characters who are, more forward. Characters who feel like bigger stars. Not necessarily from an actor perspective. I'm not saying you have to get the biggest actors, but like who feel like they're more of the main point of watching this film. Like you want to see them succeed. You want to see them live. You really want to see them maybe even take out some bad guys. You get like really invested in their characters. But I just didn't compared to other films. And I don't know how long the runtime is for all of these films, but I think this movie needed to be longer. I think it needed to be like, and I mean like 20 minutes longer, to give some more depth to these characters, to give some more development to them. The actors did fine. I liked the actors. I had no issues with any of the actors, but it's just the way the characters were written. They had great potential. Dimitri had amazing potential as a character based on like his entire being this gang leader and everything, but like, actually being a good guy and trying to, protect those close to him and everything. You had so much potential to make that work, but it's like you have this very flimsily written relationship with this girl, and it's like, oh, they used to be a couple, but now she kind of hates him for what he's become. There just needed to be more time to develop that. Isaiah and his sister don't get enough screen time with each other. Again, the mother and her daughter barely get any screen time as it is. They're barely characters. I think what I would have done is I would have taken out Skeletor altogether. Skeletor feels like he's a character who's trying to be, who they tried to make be like characters from the first three films, but just failed completely at. I don't feel like he was necessary at all. Take him out, focus everything on the socio-political side of things, take out the entire thing about this psychologist lady, Marissa Tomei's character, ending up not liking how this is going and not liking how it's being rigged. Just take that out. That side plot was unnecessary. And have it be about the socio-political stuff. Have more time to develop these characters and why it's such a big deal and why it's so bad that the NFFA are going after them for the income side of things, for the racial side of things, all of that. There's so much more that could be built with that I feel like they just kind of skimmed over. Because again, this is real shit that happens. The government is horribly mistreating the lower income people in lower income neighborhoods, which a lot of the time are people of color. And it really is fucking terrible how the government treats these people. And we need to speak out. We need to, talk about this shit to make it clear that we're not okay with it. To make it clear that we fucking hate what the government is doing to people of color, to people of lower income. It's fucking disgusting. And movies are a great way to spread a message. But you actually have to dedicate yourself to the message. You can't dedicate the movie to only skim over it briefly. To give the most bare bones, simplistic way of looking at it. You have to really dig into that. You have to really showcase how bad it is. And I just feel like they did the bare minimum. And that's really disappointing. Because this could have been an amazing commentary on this kind of stuff. But they only did the bare minimum. I just feel like this is kind of the most disappointing of the Purge films because it had the most potential. Because it had the opportunity to say the most. This is about the first Purge. This is about where it started and why it started. There's so much that can be said about income and racial inequality here that just isn't touched on enough. And that's the biggest disappointment of this film over anything else. I just feel like it also didn't really feel like a Purge movie compared to the others. And again, I know it's the first one. A lot of things are going to be different. But I also noticed this is the first movie in this series not directed by James DeMonaco. All the previous movies were directed by James DeMonaco. This one was directed by Gerald McMurray. And I think that's part of why it felt so different. I think that's part of why it felt off to me. Now, it was still written by James DeMonaco, so there is that, but still. I feel like that did cause an issue here. Now, the next movie, The Forever Purge, also has a different director, I will say that, but is also still written by James DeMonaco. Um, I'm worried about that one now because the direction does matter in certain cases and all. The writing is also still a little off, but I don't know. I feel like if DeMonaco did write and direct still, it would have felt a lot better. I feel like giving over the director's chair to another person hurt this to a degree. Um, in terms of like the idea of it and everything, this movie could be like an S tier film. The execution, C, honestly. I would say this is the worst of the Purge films so far, just because of its execution. Um, at this point, I don't know. I'd say my favorite is probably Election Year, honestly. At this point, and after having rewatched stuff and everything and thought about it a lot, and mind you, I might, and there's through rewatches and thinking about this movie and seeing other stuff, I might appreciate this film a little more than I do. It's possible. But as of now, just based off my initial reaction, I just feel like it kind of fumbled things a bit. And to enough of a degree to where it did hurt my overall like thoughts after having seen it. Um but that ends things off for our 2024 Halloween special. It was one hell of an interesting theme that I decided to do, and I think it led to some really, really unique experiences. Not all of these films ended up being great, not all of them ended up being a hit, but I'm not upset to have watched any of them. I'm glad that I at least gave them a chance and checked them out and got to see stuff from, other countries. I'm always happy to do that. Um, so yeah, it's like this was a really cool idea, and I'm glad I came up with it. I don't know what we'll end up doing next year for the Halloween special, but obviously we have a year to wait for that. Um, but this is also the last video you are seeing go up on the channel until Monday, because this weekend I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be away at a convention, and I just won't have time to edit or upload or do anything with all of that. So, yeah, this is the last video you're seeing until Monday. Thank you all so, so much for tuning in. I really want to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you thought of the first Purge. Let me know what you thought of the social commentary and its execution, of the actors, of the kills, I guess, and other crimes, I guess, shown in it. What did you think of how things were portrayed in that regard compared to previous films? And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. And I guess now we just move into the rest of the holiday season. So thank you all so much once again. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.